I don't know if you know this, I was at the White House Correspondents' dinner. So, obviously, I got to give you a breakdown. Now, I have mixed feelings about the White House Correspondents' dinner and the whole weekend around it. And if you don't know it, it's not just the dinner. You've got all these different things that go around it, brunches, parties, etc. Now, on the one hand, they are totally fun. On the other hand, they are unbearable. So, let me break down the positives and negatives for you guys. Now, the reason I go, there's just 4 significant positives. 1, I like it, okay? Now, that's my confession, and some will consider me a gross hypocrite for that. Fair point. Point well taken, okay? Look, here are some of the celebrities and politicians and reporters that I hung out with. Eric Schmidt, guy who runs Google. Eric Stone Street, camp from Modern Family. Omar Epps, Piers Morgan. Bill Burton, the guy who runs Obama's Super PAC. Jay Carney, the White House spokesperson. Rosario Dawson, Asif Manvi. Woody Harrelson, Richard Kind, Viola Davis, Bobby Jindal, governor of Louisiana, governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour, or he used to be, David Arquette, Daniel Day-Lewis, Tina Brown, Barry Diller, Harvey Weinstein, Kelly Washington, Kathleen Sebelius, the list goes on and on. I literally gave you only a third of the people that I personally met and had conversations with. Now, I find that fascinating. Bobby Jindal and I had a long conversation about social media. Outside of politics, outside of anything else, I find it interesting. I had debates with well-known writers. We had people moderate. I mean, to me, it's fascinating. And you can take that any way you like. And I'm telling you so you know, I'm keeping it real with you. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to cover this for the news value. I find it interesting, okay? Now, second of all, honestly, I'm also going to keep it real on this. It helps the show a little bit for me to go around and say Young Turks, and have all these people know about the Young Turks. Keeping it real, okay? Now, here are the 2 most important parts. I act as a person who is a mole, if you will, a spy within that organization for you guys, so you know what's happening. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a second, because I think that there's a very interesting element about that I want to tell you. Now, fourth of all, you get really interesting information. Now, I'll tell you one of the things that I learned there. On the show, we're constantly reading these reports and telling you about them in terms of, hey, what policy direction are they going to go in? Which way are the Democrats leaning? Which way are the Republicans going to charge ahead? That's usually how it goes. And let me tell you, almost everybody I talked to there was absolutely convinced, took it for a fact that Social Security must be cut. I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about journalists. I'm talking about Democrats. Everybody. Well, Cenk, of course, we have to cut Social Security. Now, if you challenge them on it and you say, hey, wait a minute, Social Security is not part of the rest of the deficit. It is an insurance that we pay into our whole lives and get back. They're like, you're right. And it actually doesn't add to the deficit at all. And in fact, it has this giant surplus. You're right. In fact, all we have to do is raise the payroll tax from applying only to 106,000 and below to about 250,000, and we're set. You don't even have to apply it to millionaires. Just if you apply it for people making 250,000 and less, we're all set. Am I right? You're right. So what's going to happen? We don't give a damn. We're going to go ahead and raise the retirement age anyway. It's coming. Now that I've been there and I talked to all those guys, now look, they could all be wrong, and my analysis of it could be wrong. But I would be shocked if they didn't at some point raise the retirement age for Social Security. Republicans want it, Democrats want it, all of Washington wants it, because they don't give a damn. It doesn't affect them. They're rich. They have huge retirement funds anyway. And they think, you can work a little longer. Now that robs you of tens of thousands of dollars that you would have gotten in retirement benefits, but it's coming. So on that alone, seeing that unfold in Washington, if you ask me, was worth going. Now, there is one downside, okay, which is if you do this on a regular basis, you become one of the guys who are part of the establishment. And as I was at the dinner itself, even though, look, I've said a million times, I'm enjoying it, I think it's fun, I think it's interesting, as I look around, something started to bother me. One was that I was seeing all these generals in their best attire, and they're in their military, I guess they have a formal dress. It's bluish, reddish, etc. It's not the green stuff you see on TV. And I see General Odierno, and I see General Petraeus, who, by the way, is now the head of the CIA, but he's in his military clothes. Now, I understand he's allowed to be in his military clothes, But it's weird, man. It's a civilian part of the government, and here's this retired general, and they're at one of the pre-parties, and you should have seen people. It was like they were the biggest rock stars. Forget George Clooney, Kim Kardashian, et cetera, that were there. They were like, oh my God, General Odierno. Oh, yes, 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 yes. And there are people swarming around them. I mean, you can tell how big and important someone is to that crowd by how much they swarm, right? So they see George Clooney, there's a swarm, no question. But they were swarming around Petraeus and gleeful. Now, if this was the exception, this is the Cenk rule on the White House Correspondents' Dinner, okay? If this was the one weekend that we all did this and put aside, hey, keeping them accountable, being watchdogs, et cetera, I can live with it. And some of you might disagree with that. But I think, yes, that's okay. But I got the sense from that room, the overwhelming sense from that room, that this is not the exception. As we suspected and feared, it is the rule. They're thrilled to be talking to General Petraeus today because he's a rock star to them. You think those guys are going to hold those guys accountable? But it's the same room. It's the same town. And as I was having a conversation with a progressive friend afterwards, I was thinking, like, Washington, it's almost the most conservative town in the country. Then I was thinking, well, it's not quite that it's the most conservative, right? Because there are theoretical Democrats, progressives, liberals in the town, right? It's just the most pro-establishment town. To which I said to myself, of course, it is the establishment. It's Washington, D.C. The problem is that the press is part of that establishment. It's not fighting back against, it's not checking that establishment. It is the establishment. And that's the sense I got from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, I feel guilty, in a sense, ratting them out and telling you all about this because, hey, look, I took part in it and I enjoyed it and et cetera, right? And I'd do it again. But the difference, I think, is that the very next day, you got to come out and say, hey, you know what? Here's what Petraeus did wrong, or here's what President Obama did wrong. And believe me, we're going to be doing that all show, of course, as you know. And the thing that I was thinking of, and this comes back to what I want to tell you about, in being a spy for you guys. President Obama was really funny. I mean, I don't know who wrote his jokes, but his delivery was excellent. I don't know if he had a part in writing it, but it was terrific. And when he tells you the joke and he smiles, he seems like the friendliest guy in the world. But I know the drone strikes. I mean, look, I can give you 100 different problems with the government and 100 different things that President Obama did wrong, and we'll talk about how he didn't punish anyone for torture and made it a matter of opinion, right? Warrantless wiretapping. I can go on all day. But for whatever reason, I kept thinking about the signature strikes that we do in Yemen and Pakistan, which are drone strikes where we don't have any idea who we're killing. If you know who you're killing, they have a word for that now. It's called personality strikes, right? And I thought, if you took a family from Pakistan or Yemen and you brought them into this fancy White House Correspondents' Dinner, and you showed all these people laughing and smiling and drinking, etc., without a care in the world about the consequences of the decision that room makes, how shocked and saddened that they would be at our incredible, outrageous indifference. And so to me, I say, yes, have the dinner. But the very next day, you got to be holding those guys accountable. If this is the rule, then our country is in big, big trouble. And unfortunately, I think it is the rule, and we are in big trouble. And I don't think the press is doing their job. Let me just button all this up by saying, today, I read about yet another drone strike in Pakistan. So I wrote a blog about this as soon as I got back home. I'm telling you here, and in the middle of all that, we did it again. And 3 people are killed. They're suspected Islamists. In northern Pakistan, who is not a suspected Islamist by our government? Are they actually really? Who knows? Are they civilians? We don't know. Part of the reason is, President Obama said at the end of his jokes, hey, we're here to celebrate a free press. Unless, of course, you happen to disagree with the administration, in which case they target you, whether you're WikiLeaks or whether you're one of the journalists in Yemen who reported on our drone strikes. And we've told you this story before. President Obama literally called the president of Yemen and said, I want you to keep him in jail longer, even though the president of Yemen was about to pardon. Because he made the terrible mistake of reporting what we're actually doing, okay? So it's the day after, and I'm trying to do my job, keeping them in check. I'm not saying I'm against all drone strikes, but the signature strikes are ridiculous. The ones where we execute U.S. citizens without a trial, without due process, are ridiculous. And we continue to do that, and the war machine hums on.